Vikings didn't have to be in New Orleans to make a lot of news. We have all kinds of stuff coming from the Super Bowl week. A lot of speculation about the Vikings' future. Something Kevin O'Connell said that he seemed to immediately regret Jared Allen going in the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about Patrick Mahomes, talk about the Super Bowl, and we will pick the game later on. This is the Viking Update Show. He's John Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. Best way to listen to this show or any show you like at TalkNorth.com. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We are presented to you by Giggly THC Beverages. That's Gigli THC Beverages and OnX Hunt. Thanks to our other sponsors, including Clamshell Beach Resort, Twill in the Edina Galleria, and again, OnX Maps, which we'll tell you more about later. Right now, let's go ahead and start with Vikings news. Kevin O'Connell wins the Coach of the Year award. I thought he was deserving. I also feel obligated to say that it's also kind of a weird award. It doesn't go to necessarily the best coach in the league. It goes to the coach who that year seemed to overachieve to the greatest extent, which is why Andy Reid doesn't win it every year.
Yeah, that's right. And there's two. And the second part of that is it's a regular season award. It's not. It is voted on during the or at the end of the regular season, and so it does not take playoff success or lack of playoff success into account. But you're right. Like, I mean, you know, it would be Andy Reid, maybe Sean McVay would win almost every year. It does seem to be the parameters of the award are who did the most with the least, essentially, or, you know, in terms of expectations and all of those things. And under those parameters, certainly Kevin O'Connell's deserving. I mean, no one expected the Vikings to win like they did this last season. No one expected them to be even in the playoffs, I don't think. And so to see what he did and then to kind of witness it up firsthand, Jim, I'm sure there was a lot of snarky replies, after he got the award from fans around the country and maybe even some disillusioned Vikings fans about, oh yeah, great job. You didn't even win your first playoff game. But when you see how players react to him, when you see the culture that he's built here, I think it's absolutely deserved. There are several other very deserving candidates as well, but he had an amazing season, and he's a great leader, and that's why the Vikings extended him, and he'll be here for a long time.
And guess what? The regular season matters. Okay,
it does,
especially in the NFL. The regular season really matters, and I think the fact that Darnold blew a gasket at the end and couldn't function speaks even more to the job that Kevin O'Connell did. He kept them together for 4 months.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you think of everything that they did go through, losing their draft pick to a tragic car accident, the injuries to JJ McCarthy, and just also, I think the recognition that, yes, they have a lot of talent with Jefferson, with Addison, with Hawkinson, with Aaron Jones, with some of the guys they have on defense and things like that. But there's still a lot of relative holes in this roster, defensively, offensive line, and what he did with Sam Darnold. Like, all of those things tell me that it's a well-coached team. I mean, I think the last 2 games of the season leave a bad taste in your mouth, because I do think that the staff was out-coached and out-prepared. But for the entirety of the season, the regular season, how many times did we say, on this show that the Vikings just out-coached the other team? I mean, a lot. They just did a great job with game planning. He got more out of Sam Darnold than any coach has gotten in the NFL. There's just so many accomplishments that I don't really view this as, he didn't win in the playoffs, so flush it all down the toilet kind of a thing. He earned that award.
I'll also say this, about getting out coached. I felt like against the Lions, the offense worked. People were wide open. They should have scored 28, 31 points in the first half if Darnold just hits open receivers. And the defense didn't really start falling apart until late third, early fourth quarter, when they just got worn down. So I actually thought that game plan was fine. I don't know what they could have done better against the Rams. I just didn't think Darnold was going to have any chance to win that game, so I didn't really watch that game as critical an eye. I just thought, okay, Darnold's done. They're done. But yeah, we can argue about what they could have done better. the body of work speaks for itself. 14 wins for the team that I thought was going to win 6 or 7. So I give him full credit for that, even though it's a weird award. Jared Allen gets into the Hall of Fame. This is another one. I think he's deserving, but I can invent a really strong opinion about a baseball candidate, maybe even a basketball candidate. I have a lot of trouble comparing Jared Allen to a wide receiver who played in 1942 and an offensive guard who played in 2025. I don't know how to do it. I've been in that room. I've been part of these votes. I still have no idea how to compare different players at different positions in different eras.
It's an incredibly difficult thing. And I will say this to the Football Hall of Fame's credit, like there's a bottleneck because they limit the people who get in. Like the Basketball Hall of Fame is a revolving door. Just whoever wants it comes in. I think baseball has loosened up a little bit over the past several years, but it's still a tough one to get, but it's getting looser. The NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame is a really tough one to crack. And you're right. I think trying to compare Jared Allen to Sterling Sharp to all these, to the many great players is incredibly difficult. I do think that he is a deserving member of the Hall of Fame. I mean, just watching him at Minnesota and the way he kind of turned his career around after Kansas City and having the alcohol problems and things like that, and then just becoming a dominant player and a durable and great player for a long time. I think he is one of the best defensive ends I've ever covered. And so he is deserving. But yes, like you look at who he's up against, who could get in, who doesn't. Those conversations have got to be just laborious and finicky and all those things. I mean, you've been in there, so you can tell us better than I can, certainly. But I don't know how they reach consensus on anything.
Yeah, I subbed in for Sid Hartman once. Mark Craig now is our voter, and I think does a really good job of it for the Star Tribune and football writers. And I voted for the Baseball Hall of Fame for a long time before I just pulled myself out. I just didn't feel like I should be making that decision. And I voted, and for one time I went to a Hall of Fame, and I was presenting Carl Eller. And what became very clear was, none of the other writers, and I was friends with half the writers in there, none of the other writers were going to consider Carl Eller. It's like I got up and gave the speech, and I don't think anybody even looked at me. The other thing that became very clear was that there's a certain amount of horse trading going on. Hey, you vote for my guy, I'll vote for your guy. Okay, let's push this guy this year. We'll save this guy for next year. There's a lot of classic backroom bargaining going on, which I think ends up working out okay, but I don't like that as a process. The other thing that became very clear was that Sid Hartman was keeping Vikings out of the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
He would scream at people. He didn't do the horse trading. He didn't try to make a rational case. He didn't go to statistics or research. He just got up and screamed at these people that this guy better be in the Hall of Fame or I'm going to, blow up your hotel. I mean, it was just ridiculous rhetoric, and everybody hated him for it. And so they did not vote for Vikings. He kept Vikings out of the Hall of Fame for longer than they should have been.
Yeah. And that is the one part that I just don't like about the whole process, because I think like one thing is clear, that Mark Craig does an incredible job. He researches. He has a great bedside manner. I've known him forever. He's a super good dude and a really, really good football writer, and he has a lot of respect in that room. That's great, and he deserves that. And there is no coincidence that the Vikings have had success getting their guys through during Mark Craig's tenure. But I just don't think that should come down to it. Like, I don't think that should be the deciding factor of who gives the best speech, who gives the best presentation. Like, these guys should be evaluated on their careers. Sure, certainly you could have someone that, maybe offers enlightening details and stats and anecdotes and things that maybe other people who didn't follow certain person's career would to think about a little bit more in their candidacy and advocate. But the fact that it does so often really seem like it comes down to, is the guy who's presenting him respected and popular in the room? And I can absolutely picture Sid getting up there and just browbeating people and saying, y'all are assholes if you don't vote for this guy, and people being turned off by that. But that shouldn't matter. Just like I don't know how much it should matter that Mark Craig is clearly very, very good at it and takes his time and does a great job with it. It should be on the merits of the player to be inducted. And that is a difficult part of the process.
No doubt about it. So after Kevin O'Connell wins the award, he says something like, or he was quoted as saying something along the lines of, hey, we're going to win a championship and Sam Darnold's going to be a big part of it. That was the quote that was put out. Then later he goes on with local media, has a session with local media, and basically walks that back, says, no, that's not what I meant. Sam's earned the right to be a free agent. I was expressing, I'm very happy for, he kind of backed away from that statement. And usually, well, actually, you know what? We're going to save that topic for next. Before we get to that topic, I want you to hear more about Aquarius Home Services.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services, your independent authorized Connecticut dealer, bringing some love to your water. Isn't it time for softer skin and laundry, sparkling dishes, and water so good you'll want to hug your faucet? Connecticut is easy on salt, uses zero electricity, and delivers worry-free water you'll love. Schedule your free water analysis today at AquariusHomeservices.com and save up to 25% on a Connecticut whole home system. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
And here's our Talk North colleague, Michael Russo, for Clamshell Beach Resorts.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
And hey, the Manning brothers have made the quarter zip famous, right? And they wear pretty casual clothes. They're on TV all the time. They're usually wearing a quarter slip and like some slacks. They don't look like they got dressed up to do anything, but they also look pretty presentable. Well, you can look better than the Manning brothers. Go shop at Twill. I've now bought, I think, 3 of those quarter zips, and I guarantee you mine are nicer than theirs. The Peter Millar, the Johnny O's, that they feel great to wear. They fit you exactly the way they should fit you. They're going to last me forever. And now I have like 3 that will go with anything else I own in my ship. Also, you see the Manning brothers, doing football things, acting like quarterbacks, moving around in their basements as they're doing their Manning casts. Well, you know what kind of clothes fits that? The athletic fabric that is now used for so much of the great men's clothing that you find at Twill. I see it mostly in Peter Millar and Johnny O, but I know he's got a dozen other brands that use the same kind of technology. I put on what looks like a dress shirt, and it feels more comfortable than athletic wear. That's the kind of stuff you get at Twill. You can also get the high-end Italian suits. You can get shoes. You can get shorts. You can get golf stuff. But for this time of the year, what you really want is you're getting through winter and heading towards spring is you want some stuff that's comfortable, that'll keep you warm, that'll look nice, and will be comfortable no matter how nice it looks. So check out Twill in the Dining Galleria, twillmn.com. So to get back to O'Connell, usually as journalists, we know you believe what people say in the moment and you ignore their PR efforts later. In this case, I believe the walk back more than I believe he meant what he was quoted to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so if I want to try and understand what he may have meant. I could say, if I want to be generous with it, I could say, you know what, he's maybe saying that if we go on to win a championship, that the work that Sam Darnold put in this season in sort of getting that team turned around and establishing a new winning expectation will have laid some of the foundation for it. That's just a guess of what he meant, because the fact that he did walk it back afterward says that essentially, I guess I'd be surprised. I don't know you, Jim, but like, it seems like they've made their decision. Like, they're moving on from Sam, assuming that JJ is healthy and that Sam at least gets some sort of solid offer to be either a starter somewhere else or a well-paid backup. And so that's the two things that I take out of it, that I kind of try to read between the lines on it, is that he wouldn't have walked it back if they were not already going full speed ahead into the JJ McCarthy era. But also, he may have just meant that it may have been a thank you to Sam for everything that he helped do this season.
I think that's exactly what it was. And I think and if you listen to the way Kevin talks, he
rambles.
He rambles. And what he usually does is he starts off the answer to every question saying like the 8 things that he thinks a head coach should say.
Yeah.
He says, okay, let me praise our culture. Let me talk about how hard our players work. Let me praise my staff. Let me praise the organization. Let me tell you how excited we are. And then at the end, he'll kind of give you some reality, which I appreciate, because most NFL coaches do the first and they don't do the second. Kevin gives all the coaching talking points, and then he'll actually answer your question at the end. And I think he got caught up with Sam Darnold being there and him winning this award and got all fired up and was kind of like, hey, Sam's a part of this no matter what happens, even though he's going to leave as free agent.
Yeah, that feels right. And we do know about Kevin O'Connell, like how connected he does feel to players.
Yep.
Like, and I think they understand that Sam is on his way out, but they have Kevin has a great appreciation for what he did this season and a respect for sort of handling things the right way, even if those last 2 games really did seal Sam Darnold's fate. I still think that he's making every effort that he can for this to end on good terms, and for Sam Darnold to feel good about his time in Minnesota, for him, for Kevin O'Connell to maintain some sort of relationship with him going forward, all of those things. And it's important to Kevin to have those relationships, and I think do things like this the right way. This potentially is sort of an awkward transition, right? I mean, you have this guy who had legitimately an MVP caliber season right up until the last 2 games of the year, who was an enormous part of this shockingly successful season, and who did everything that O'Connell needed from him and then some to give the Vikings a real chance. And then he played 2 really bad games and he's going to leave. And so I think Kevin's very sensitive to that and doesn't want people to label Sam as, a flash in the pan type of a thing. And he's trying to give him all the respect that he can out on his way out the door, and maybe just misstated his beliefs and how he viewed things.
Agreed. All right, let's get to the Super Bowl. Some memories about Pat Mahomes and what our picks are. First, I want to let you know that you should keep the good times rolling without the regrets. That's Giggly THC Beverages, Gigli. They're your go-to for bold flavor and smooth vibes. 0 alcohol, no bad decisions, just THC-infused cocktails, seltzers, and teas packed with natural ingredients and performance-boosting superfoods like ashwagandha and ginseng. Find Giggly at more than 500 locations like Total Wine, MGM, and Cub Foods, or shop online at Giggly.com. Ready to upgrade your drink game? Use the code GIGLYNORTH, GIGLI North, for 50% off your first order. Giggly, sip smarter, feel better. My wife and I are really enjoying that stuff right now. Highly recommend it. It's great to not wake up without a hangover if you had something the night before. Also want to let you know about Onyx Hunt and Onyx Fishing apps. Ice fishing is here. It's time to hit the frozen water with Onyx Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use Onyx Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake by lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download Onyx Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice. All right, so let's just start with the pick as a way to kick this conversation off. I think picks are stupid, but people want to hear them. So who are you picking?
Yeah, I'm picking Kansas City. I'm just like, I'm in that mode and of that belief that I will see Patrick Mahomes lose a Super Bowl before I pick him to lose a Super Bowl. They just find a way. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they just figure things out. And I think Philadelphia is probably like top to bottom more talented as a team, as a roster. But Kansas City defense is good, and I just expect Mahomes to do what he needs to do to get this win. And also, I just don't really like Philadelphia, so I don't want to pick them.
Philadelphia's really interesting because we have every reason to hate their fan base. Players, when they were here for the Super Bowl, I thought were really classy.
Yeah,
Jason Kelsey's a blast.
Totally. It's a well-run organization.
Yeah, it's a very well-run organization. So, but the fan base just makes it impossible to like. So here's my thing. Last 3 years, doing picks on the Jeff Diamond show and also here, I just kept saying over and over, I'm not picking this Patrick Mahomes. I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. Guess what? I'm about to pick against Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. And you know what? If I only had a week to think about it, and if the teams were a little banged up and going to this game with some reservations, I'd probably pick the Chiefs just because they're survivors. 2 weeks, the healthier, better roster, the better roster. The Eagles are better almost every position. They're not as good at quarterback, although their quarterback can play about as well when he's on. You can argue that Kelsey might be better than Goddard, although Goddard had a better year. Other than that, the Eagles are just a superior team. They just are. So given all this time to think about it, I just cannot pick Patrick Mahomes, even though that's what my gut wants me to do.
Well, you're a visionary. You're a bold, hot take artist, and you're putting yourself out there. So I respect I expect you going out on a limb. I don't know who's favored.
Eagles.
I assume. Okay, Eagles are. Well, so maybe not. Yeah, I gave you a bunch of props and you picked the favorite. Great way to go.
Yeah, I know. I'm just a front runner who's afraid to pick anything that will make anybody angry. That's right. All it is. Although I just angered all my Chiefs friends. Anyway, I will also say that I have been somewhat reflective going back and trying to figure out when I got Super Bowls right and when I got Super Bowls wrong. And I think when I miss a Super Bowl pick, it's usually because I picked the better quarterback instead of the better team.
Interesting. Yeah. I will say in general, I get in trouble when I pick over with emotion over analysis. And that's probably what I'm doing right here. I remember a few years ago, I picked Burrow and the Bengals to win, and they didn't win. And just because I love Burrow. And so, yeah, I will tend to stray that way sometimes. And so I could be blinded by that right now, but I guess we'll find out in a couple days.
How will you watch the game? Oh, you know what? I take it back. I just found the line. The Chiefs are favored by 1.5. So I am a bold visionary whose genius will not be recognized in his time.
It's incredible. It is incredible. The fearless is what you
fearless is the right word.
Yeah. So we don't have plans just yet. A lot of times I just like to watch at home and just kind of relax. It's been an incredibly busy week with the NBA trade deadline, and we'll see if ownership stuff comes down tonight or if it comes down on Monday. But there's just a lot going on, so I might just chill. Or one of the friends in the neighborhood does have a Super Bowl party and does a really good job and has pizza and wings and have a beer. And like my son is friends with their son and everything. So we may stop over there. We've done that too. It's always fun. So we'll see what's on your docket for.
My wife and I like to watch it at home. Plus, since I used to go to Super Bowls every year, we don't really spend money on that anymore. Mark Craig's down there for us. And, I did have many Super Bowls where I felt like I got something either during the week or after the game from maybe somebody with a Minnesota connection that you wouldn't get, anywhere else. I was able to land an interview or get some insight from somebody that I thought made it going to work. But what we found in the years since I stopped going is, you can still write about the game and put things in perspective historically. It's not as good as being there, but so I will write off the game off TV. It's something that, before COVID, I would have been very offended to be asked to do. And COVID kind of got me in a mode where, okay, it's not the worst thing in the world to do.
Well, especially like it's what I learned to cover. Like the only Super Bowl I've covered is the one that's here. And what you do learn is like, I think us as reporters, the value of covering games and being there is being able to sort of like go away from the pack and do your own thing and find little nuggets. But it is just so difficult to do that in that event with the billions of media people that are there, with just the hubbub and the chaos. And it's just like, man, is it difficult to like find any little thing that is unique or different or anything like that. So, sitting at home and watching and then writing is probably more often than not just fine for a Super Bowl, because there's just too much going on.
Yeah, I do remember some cool Super Bowl. I remember Tom Moore from Rochester, Minnesota, should be in the Hall of Fame as an assistant coach. He was Peyton Manning's coach when Manning won the Super Bowl with the Colts. I remember going to a midweek press availability, and I sat and talked to Tom Moore for an hour. Every once in a while, you get a little window, and you can't create it, but every once in a while you get a little window. I remember Matt Burke winning the Super Bowl with the Ravens. The elevators weren't working. I sprinted from the top of the Superdome down to the basement, talked to him, ran back up. I got up. I was soaking wet. Mark Craig asked me, why I didn't have a singlet on for my marathon experience. So there were moments, but in general, you can still write about history, Patrick Mahomes, what it might mean for the NFL, the Vikings, all that stuff. So I will do that. And then I'll have a drink.
Great. Fantastic.
So let's hit one more topic here.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about it off the air, and you said you wouldn't mind talking about this. I did cover Pat Mahomes when he was a Twins reliever, and I won't make it out like we were super close or anything like that, but we got along and we talked a lot. He was actually might have been the first Twin I ever met. Because I was covering the Vikings. They asked me to switch to baseball. So I had a very short off season. I went down to Fort Myers and I walked in the spring training clubhouse, and here's this guy, looks like a basketball player, like dunking over the rafters. He's like jumping up to the top and just dunking like baseballs just for fun, And I'm like, that's unusual. Do baseball players look like that? No, baseball players usually don't look like that. He was ripped. He was an explosive leaper. He was a very good high school basketball player. Decided that baseball was the right way to make his living. Ended up having kind of a nice, journeyman season where he pitched around the majors and picked up a little bit of money. But the thing I remember two things. He was a very nice guy. He was very nice to me. His coaches liked him a lot. He was very coachable. The athletic ability never quite translated into dominant stuff. And so he just became one of those pitchers who had to figure out a way to get you out, which is very hard to do over a long period of time. The other thing I remember about him is I remember seeing him like pack up before a game at the Metrodome one day. And I'm in there and just chatting and said, what's up? You heading out? He said, I was like, did he just get traded? Did he just get cut? They didn't cut him, right? He said, oh yeah, my wife, I can't remember if he was the wife or girlfriend at that time, to put words in his mouth, my significant other is about to give birth to our boy. So I'm taking off, and I'm like, oh, really? What are you going to name him? Oh, Patrick. And you and I have covered a million athletes. We've covered athletes' children. We've covered we might be getting close to covering some athletes' grandchildren that we knew back in the day, but that is the unique one. That is okay. Patrick Mahomes Pat Mahomes told me he was going to go watch the birth of Patrick Mahomes, and I had no idea that. And I figured he'd be an athletic kid, but you have no idea that he might be the best quarterback who ever lived.
I was a kid when Pat Mahomes was here, and I watched the Twins, and I actually I kind of had an affinity for him because back then, I mean, I would say you didn't see a ton of black pitchers, right?
No, not a lot.
I mean, there. I mean, sure, you had Dave Stewart, and you had some all those guys, but he was unique, at least among the Twins that I remember. And so I was just like, oh, this is, I like this guy. I want to watch him. But I think we see Patrick Mahomes and his, the arm strength is ridiculous. Was he like a power pitcher? What was he like as a pitcher? What was the arm like? Cause I don't remember anything about his stuff and anything that he had.
It was too average. It was probably a tick above average, but not dynamic enough that he could survive with it. He wasn't one of those pitchers who could get by with stuff. His stuff was good enough to keep him in the majors, but not good enough for him to get people out unless he had command and control, and he just didn't have enough command and control.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm actually going back through his stats now. Career ERA over 11 years of 5.47. Now he did pitch somewhat in the steroid era, so he had some bad years, but he really didn't have a really good season. Now, 1994 with the Twins, 4.73 ERA. That was probably the best he had done until he goes to the Mets in 1999 in his, what year would that be? So about a 7th or 8th year in the bigs. And he had 3.6 ERA in 39 games. And then his next to last year with the Cubs, 3.86 ERA. His last year with the Pirates, 4.84 ERA. But in general, just, he was not a particularly good major league pitcher. And to me,
11 years,
but he lasted 11 years, and he was, and in part because he had a good attitude. He'd do anything he asked. He'd spot start. He'd come in the middle of the inning. He was a good guy. He was a good guy, and he had a good reputation. So he was going to be the kind of guy you didn't mind filling out the back of your rotation with. But it also spoke to me because I remember the Twins had two great young hopes when I started covering the team: Willie Banks and Pat Mahomes. And
I remember Willie Banks.
And Willie Banks was also an excellent basketball player. Two athletic young guys. Good attitudes, good guys, and good stuff, and they couldn't get major league hitters out. And then LaTroy Hawkins took 5-6 years for him to start learning how to get people out. It just showed you how hard it is to pitch in the major leagues. These guys were athletic, and they had so much going for them, and they just couldn't get people out.
Yeah, it's crazy. And now he has maybe the best quarterback of all time as his kid. It's crazy. And I talked to LaTroy Hawkins because LaTroy grew up, Patrick Mahomes grew up with LaTroy going to all of his games down in Texas. And I think Torrey Hunter too. And LaTroy told me a couple of years ago after, I think it was might have been last year. He said, people are going nuts over Patrick, and I understand it. He said, it's weird for me because he's exactly the same player and guy as he was in high school. He carried himself the same way. He made the same plays. He was that much of a winner, that much of a leader. He said, so I watch him play for the Chiefs, and I don't see any difference between him now and in high school. And how often do you say that about anybody? Man, that's crazy. Yeah. Because normally you dominate at high school, you play really well in college, and then you're all right in the pros. But I mean, he just he does it all. Now, this will be interesting because he did not have a dominant season. No, right? He was a good quarterback. Had a good season, but then you just find it now that they're in winning time, he's gonna, I think, take it to a whole nother level and figure it out.
Well, all I know is that if I would watch Patrick Mahomes play football under any circumstances. So I love it when he's in the Super Bowl because it just elevates the entire experience for me.
Absolutely, you want big stars. You want I'm not a Chiefs fan, but I will think it's cool if they do win because 3 in a row. We've never seen that before. That's history. That's amazing. And that's with one of the best players to ever do it. And to be able to be around while he's doing it is a really cool thing. And so this is a great situation for the NFL.
I also love that they'd be taking it away from the Patriots, Belichick and Brady, who bores the hell out of me.
100%. And we know Patrick Mahomes is a lot of things. Boring is not one of them.
Exactly right. Good stuff, John. Enjoy the game. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks to everyone that listens to TalkNorth.com.